Pam Bondi looked straight into the camera and made a declaration that instantly caught national attention. She claimed the Epstein client list was sitting right on her desk. 17 days into her new role as Attorney General, she positioned herself as the face of accountability, signaling that long-buried secrets were about to be unearthed. For a public hungry for answers, it felt like the beginning of a reckoning. But instead of clarity, what followed was a calculated performance, a string of contradictions, and a series of moves that seemed more about protecting power than delivering truth. The moment the words left her mouth, people expected revelations. The very idea of a client list, names of influential figures who had mingled with Jeffrey Epstein, carried the promise of exposing one of the most infamous networks of elite connections in modern history.
Commentators. However, the files released were largely already publicly available. There was nothing new. After intense blowback, Attorney General Bondi went back to Fox News, the mothership, and claimed that a whistleblower, quote, assured her there were more files, and that, quote, New York, Southern District of New York, was sitting on thousands of pages of documents. And she promised on Fox, and I quote, we will get everything, and the country will see, quote, the full Epstein files. These are quotes from Attorney General Bondi voluntarily appearing on Fox News to explain the situation. For the next 4 months, the Department of Justice and the FBI were silent. What happened during that period? Well, we received information that Attorney General Bondi pressured the FBI to assign, now get this, approximately 1,000 agents in its Information Management Division and hundreds of additional agents from the New York field office to work 24-hour shifts to review and produce more documents on Epstein on an arbitrarily short deadline. These officials were told to, quote, flag any records in which President Trump was mentioned. But after this flurry of activity using tens of thousands of personnel hours in March, it took DOJ and FBI 3 additional months to produce no new documents, but rather an unsigned memorandum on July 7th finding that, quote, this systemic review revealed no incriminating client list. Naturally, after all of the public promises Attorney General Bondi has made, the public is really suspicious of her finding. This suspicion has been exacerbated by public reporting that FBI Director Patel and FBI Deputy Director Bongino disagree with Attorney General Bondi's handling of this matter. Public mistrust has been fed by other claims in the July 7th memorandum. This memorandum included links to surveillance video footage from outside Epstein's cell in the hours leading up to his death. The July 7th memorandum describes one of the videos released as full, raw footage, yet experts who've analyzed it concluded the video was likely modified. The Trump administration has essentially created a new controversy rather than solving one. President Trump is not helping matters at all. Despite his administration continuing making promises about the transparency on Jeffrey Epstein and claims about the existence of records that have not been produced, he is currently telling the country the president is saying this is all, quote, a scam, close quote. Yesterday, President Trump posted on his personal social media site, and I quote, my past supporters have bought into this BS hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson, and they probably never will. That's from the president's personal social media. This is the president talking about his own constituents who are concerned about claims his own campaign surrogates and administration have continually raised. President Trump and Attorney General Bondi are directly responsible for all this confusion.
But the files she promised to reveal turned out to be little more than recycled public documents. Journalists had already published them, analysts had already reviewed them, and the so-called disclosure left the public feeling deceived. The excitement of her bold announcement collapsed into disappointment, planting the first seeds of doubt, and that doubt would only grow stronger. Days later, the administration doubled down with a choreographed media spectacle. On February 27th, a staged rollout was prepared like a Hollywood premiere. Binders of Epstein-related documents were delivered to political allies and influencers, promoted as if they contained explosive secrets that would rock the nation. Cameras captured the moment, and supporters were told the truth was finally being laid bare. But behind the glossy covers, the binders held nothing new. It was the same information the public had already seen. The stunt backfired. Instead of trust, it produced outrage. Instead of answers, it created backlash. People began to wonder if there was really something significant to disclose. Why go to such lengths to disguise empty files as revelations? Rather than retreat, Bondi raised the stakes. She appeared on Fox News again, this time claiming a whistleblower had assured her that the Southern District of New York was hiding thousands of pages of evidence. It was a bold escalation designed to shift the narrative. Now the problem wasn't her failed promise, it was that shadowy forces were allegedly blocking her from delivering the truth. By casting herself as the insider fighting against a corrupt system, she reframed herself as a victim of bureaucracy, rather than the architect of a failed disclosure. But while she spoke in front of cameras, the more alarming activity was happening behind closed doors. Reports later revealed that she pressured the FBI to mobilize resources on a scale rarely seen for a case of this kind. Nearly 1,000 agents from the Information Management Division were reassigned. Hundreds more were pulled from the New York field office. These agents were instructed to work around the clock, combing through Epstein-related documents. The directive, however, was not simply to identify relevant evidence, it was to flag any record that mentioned the president. This instruction revealed the true purpose of the operation. It was not about uncovering the scope of Epstein's connections or delivering transparency to the American people. It was about protecting political figures from being linked to one of the most toxic scandals in modern memory. Federal law enforcement was being repurposed as a tool for political damage control, transforming the pursuit of justice into an exercise in censorship. After months of exhausting manpower, what did this massive mobilization produce? On July 7, the Department of Justice released an unsigned memorandum. Its conclusion: no incriminating client list had been found. No names, no evidence, no bombshell revelations, just a vague assertion that nothing of consequence had surfaced. The fact that the document remained unsigned only deepened public skepticism. An unsigned memo was not an official conclusion. It was an echo of authority without accountability, and it looked more like a hastily drafted script than a definitive investigation. Worse still, the memorandum included surveillance footage from outside Epstein's cell on the night of his death. Officials described it as raw, unaltered video, yet independent experts who reviewed the material concluded that the footage had likely been modified. Frames appeared missing. Angles seemed inconsistent. Rather than quiet suspicions, the footage inflamed them. If evidence in such a critical case could be tampered with, what else had been altered, concealed, or erased? Public anger only grew, and so did mistrust. The administration's strategy of staging events, making dramatic promises, and producing dubious findings created a sense that the truth was being buried under layers of deception. And in a stunning twist, the president himself appeared to ridicule the very outrage his own administration had fueled. On social media, he dismissed the entire controversy as a scam, going further to mock supporters who had believed the promises that officials themselves had promoted. He described them as gullible, claiming they had bought into lies hook, line, and sinker, and sneering that they probably never would learn their lesson. For millions who had once trusted the administration to deliver answers, the statement landed like a betrayal. It confirmed what many had already begun to suspect, that transparency was never the goal. Outrage had been weaponized for political convenience, and when it became a liability, even loyal supporters were mocked and discarded. But the scandal didn't stop there. Inside the FBI itself, cracks began to show. Director Patel and Deputy Director Bonino were reported to have disagreed with Bondi's management of the case. Their break from the Attorney General revealed a deeper crisis of integrity within the highest levels of law enforcement. This was not a matter of minor policy disputes, it was evidence of a growing fracture between political leadership and career officials. The public could see it, and the world could too. When the independence of the Department of Justice and the FBI is compromised, trust at home collapses and credibility abroad disintegrates. By this point, the Epstein scandal was no longer about Epstein. It had become a mirror reflecting the ways in which power shields itself from accountability. Bondi's dramatic declaration that she held the client list had evolved into a pattern recognizable in authoritarian playbooks: make grand promises of disclosure, create a media circus to buy time, deploy government agencies not to reveal truth but to protect allies, and then dismiss the outrage as foolish once the narrative no longer serves. The costs of such a strategy are profound. Public faith in the justice system erodes when officials turn it into a stage for political theater. Citizens begin to question whether any investigation can be trusted, whether any disclosure is real, or whether all outcomes are preordained by those in power. The Epstein case, already infamous, has transformed into a broader symbol of elite protection schemes and institutional corruption. What makes this more devastating is that the scandal was avoidable. Bondi could have tempered expectations, released genuine information as it became available, and refrained from turning one of the most sensitive cases in modern history into a media performance. Instead, she chose spectacle over substance. The result was not just disappointment, but lasting damage to the credibility of both the Justice Department and the FBI. The fallout continues to this day. Supporters who once believed promises of transparency now feel betrayed. Critics who long suspected corruption see their worst fears confirmed. International observers view the American justice system as compromised by politics. And inside the agencies tasked with upholding the law, morale suffers as professionals watch their work twisted into instruments of image management. Bondi's insistence that the client list sat on her desk may go down as one of the most misleading statements made by an attorney general in modern history. It was not simply an exaggeration, it was the opening act in a sequence of staged events designed to manipulate public perception. From glossy binders filled with old documents, to whistleblower claims that shifted blame, to pressure campaigns that repurposed federal agents into political bodyguards, the trajectory was clear. The truth was never meant to come out, and yet the truth has a way of pushing back. The unsigned memorandum declaring that no incriminating list existed is widely seen as implausible. Court filings, media investigations, and eyewitness accounts all point to a vast network of high-profile connections surrounding Epstein. The idea that none of them left a paper trail defies reason, and the tampered video footage only reinforces the suspicion that evidence was not just concealed but actively altered. So the question remains, if officials can bury one of the most demanded files in modern history, what else can they suppress? If thousands of agents can be reassigned not to uncover truth but to erase names, how many other cases have been quietly redirected away from accountability? The Epstein saga has become more than the story of a disgraced financier. It has become the story of a justice system bent to serve the powerful. Pam Bondi promised the country a reckoning. What she delivered was a performance, and in doing so she exposed something even larger than the Epstein scandal itself. She revealed how fragile public trust becomes when institutions trade truth for convenience. She showed how easy it is for officials to turn outrage into theater, and then into silence. And she left behind a chilling lesson: if justice can be rewritten in the Epstein case, then no case is safe from the same fate. The public was told to expect answers. Instead they got smoke and mirrors. And as the dust settles, one reality remains unavoidable: this was never about exposing the truth, it was always about hiding it.